What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bring you incredible guests from all over the world, so sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is an expert on do-it-yourself credit card debt reduction. He's an author, a business coach, public speaker. Please welcome Kenny Gold. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Like I said before we started recording, I love this do-it-yourself credit card reduction. I think that, and I'm going to say it again, there are so many resources out there. There's so many ways for people to really help themselves when it comes to debt and getting themselves in a financial stability situation. They just don't want to they're kind of lazy, or maybe just, like you said, programmed. And I consider those programs are almost like labels that are put on, like, I'm not capable, or I don't have the resources, or I can't. You know what I mean? So I kind of want to hear a little bit about your background and what led you to being an expert in this credit card reduction.
Sure. So around 2000, so I'm a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker, screenwriter and director for 30 years. I live here in Los Angeles. I was directing a movie in 2007. It was a wonderful film. It's called Uncross the Stars with Barbara Hershey and Ron Perlman. We were shooting on location in Phoenix, and my business partner, who was a close friend, within about a week, suddenly took ill and passed away while we're shooting the movie. So like many people, I was stuck with a very quick business decision to make. Do I stop shooting? He was an equity financer, get together some scenes and go try and raise more equity, or finish the film with loans. I decided to finish the film with loans with the intent of selling the movie, as I'd done many times before. Only that was 2007, and that fall when we were editing, the subprime mortgage crisis hit, and the next spring, the market crash hit. And like many, many, many millions of people, my story is just my story. Millions of people have their own stories about how that market crash of 2008 sort of upended their life and expectations around finance. And then it happened again in COVID, and it happens to people even in between those major events. People go forward in life with a certain intent. Maybe they own a business and it makes a certain income, or they have a job that pays a certain salary and these are their expenses. And then things shift, medical expenses, injuries, divorce, and we wind up having credit card debt that we didn't expect or anticipate. And in a situation where paying it back becomes more than we're able to do given our new circumstances. So I was left with this mountain of personal debt when my partner died and the market crash hit and the film didn't sell. And I was thinking I was going to file bankruptcy. I was paying something like $4,000 a month in interest on the debt. And there was just no way. There was no way with those unexpected events that I was going to be able to pay off that debt. It would have taken me 30 years and cost me $500,000. It was impossible.
Yeah.
And it was actually a bankruptcy attorney who told me about debt settlement, the process of calling up your bank or lender and saying, hey, this is my situation. I'm not going to be able to pay this back in full as I intended and planned. Can we work out another arrangement?
Yeah.
And at that time, 15 years ago, it wasn't like today where all the different debt relief agencies were advertising on television. You just didn't know about it. Like my jaw hit the floor when I said, I didn't call up my bank and negotiate for less than I owed. How does that work? I couldn't find any information on how it worked. These days, you Google, there's a blog, a list of this or that, tried this.
Right.
It was nothing. So I had to do it myself. So I spent about 1.5 years talking to major U.S. banks, negotiating settlements on hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt from that film. And I wound up doing it very successfully. I eliminated all of my debt in about 18 months, debt that would have been with me for 20 years at least. I saved well into the six figures just on the principal up front, and multiple six figures if you'd included all of the interest that I would have paid over many years. And as a writer, I thought, well, this is, as you said, this is something people need to know about.
Yeah.
I wrote my first book, this book called The Do-It-Yourself Bailout.
I like that.
Yeah. And because that was right in 2007 when the TARP bailouts were happening and everyone was like, why are banks getting a $1 trillion? I figured out the math once. The TARP bailouts to the 25 largest banks were about $850 billion. Wow. $850 billion at the time was the total credit card debt of every American.
Holy crap.
The government could have paid off and zeroed out all of the credit card debt of every person in America, or use the same amount of money to bail out the banks.
Yeah.
So that they pay their debts. They bailed out the banks. So I said, the do-it-yourself bailout. So I wrote this book, which was sort of my journey. Like, this is what happened on every phone call, and these were the ups and downs, and you can do it too.
Yeah.
And okay, so I don't want to keep going. That's the answer to the first question. That's how I got into it.
No, I'm fascinated, and I just like, okay, let's talk about this in practical application, right? So if somebody's listening to this, like, yeah, Kenny, okay, well, I just went through a divorce, and I don't know if they're going to be really receptive to, me trying to negotiate with them. Did you ever hit a wall with any of them where it was a little bit more difficult?
Yeah, the book talks about numerous ups and downs. There's a whole chapter called The Wild Ride, where one bank said they agreed to a certain settlement amount and said they would send me a settlement agreement, and then never did, and then started pressuring me with, like, you're going to lose the settlement if you pay. And I'm like, well, you haven't sent the paperwork. I cover a whole section of the books about, making sure you get your settlement agreement in writing. There was another situation where I did get my settlement agreement in writing, and after the deal was closed, a new collection agent tried to call me up and collect on the balance as if it was still owed, and I had to prove to them that the payment was a settlement in full, not on the balance. I had calls with collection agents who would say to me things like, what would your girlfriend think of you if she knew you were settling debt for less than you owed? What were your
gosh.
Well, so this is the really interesting thing. So there are some resources out there around debt settlement, and they all talk about the steps. And I go through all the steps in both the do-it-yourself bailout, and I have a new book called Debt Reduction Made Easy. I go through every step, like every single step you need to take, beginning to end. But even more importantly than the steps are the emotions.
Yeah.
Everybody has emotion around finance. Rich people have emotion around finance. Poor people have emotion around finance. People in debt, not in debt. Money coming, we all tie up emotion around our finances.
Yes.
And the emotions of debt are really painful. Like, people suffer from shame and guilt and fear and anxiety. A lot of the times you were talking about, like, what stops someone from getting that resource?
Yeah.
People will label themselves with the emotions of debt first and stop themselves from taking advantage of laws and recognizable practices that are out there that can help them, because they're judging themselves on being in debt. And it's the self-judgment and the pain and fear and shame and guilt and anxiety and stress that will keep people paying that monthly credit card bill every month, no matter what damage it's doing to their life, because they're not willing to process the emotions first. And what that collection agent was trying to do was to get me emotionally off balance so that I would go back onto regular payments. So 50% of my work is, here are the actual steps of reducing your debt very, very quickly for a lot less than you ever thought was possible. But really, the coaching part of it is, this is how you work through the emotions and self-judgment and the judgment of others and the labeling of what you believe is the belief system around debt, and breaking that down, because that entire belief system around debt is programmed. It's programmed through television commercials. It's programmed through history, the whole, like, honor system.
The society too. Society, the way they look at you if you have debt, or if it's just, it's very dysfunctional,
And it's created with the intent of making people believe that they have to do this, that they have to pay their credit card bill back every month at full interest, when in fact that bank isn't doing the same thing with its lenders.
Right.
Big companies aren't doing the same thing with their lenders, and governments aren't doing the same thing with their lenders. So governments and banks and big companies know that debt is a tool and a resource that you can use in many ways, but they want to program individual people to think this is the only way you're supposed to deal with debt, which is to pay it off in full. And I come along and say, let that go. There are legal, viable, real avenues available to you to help your life. Let's let go of the emotions first so you can go take advantage of them.
I love it, because I was married before. My late husband, he passed away about 8 years ago. And when he passed away, like, my life was in disarray. And, I refused. I owned a house prior to getting married, and I had held on to that. And I was basically like below poverty because wasn't working. I was in court fighting, all these different attorneys because we had multiple businesses. And I refused to lose my home. And I like just studied and researched and found available resources for me in my state that allowed me, that I qualified for because of what I was going through to hold on to my house. So it was it was that debt that was paid was forgiven actually just recently after all the years. So I was able to live there, not having to pay my mortgage. I got caught up on my mortgage, and then for a year and a half did not have to pay a mortgage because I qualified for the resources here in my state. And so I'm assuming that like dealing with debt, like a credit card debt, is almost similar, where there are resources that people can help you and and do it yourself, right? To work on that stuff.
It's funny that you say the word qualified. People, even your listeners, may have heard these radio commercials. I won't name them, but there's numerous debt relief agencies out there. And their whole advertising is along the lines of, there are programs that you may qualify for that allows you to pay less than you owe. Call us to see if you qualify. Frankly, that's all BS. You don't need a debt settlement agency to call your bank and negotiate a settlement on your debt. They just want you to think that you do. The way they phrase their television and radio commercials, you may qualify, call us to see if you can, is made to make you think you need an agency to go do this for you. Okay. Not only do you not, there's no law or regulation that says you use an agency, but coming out of the movie business, like where you needed an agent to go sell a screenplay, it's not even that in practice. Your bank would prefer to talk to you directly than to talk to an agency. And financially, using an agency will cost you about twice as much.
Oh, wow.
So for the people who come across my work, it's really a two-step process. Is debt settlement right for me? Like am I in a situation where my income and my debt and my assets and my expenses are such that reducing my debt by 2/3 right now is the best way to go? And if you agree that debt settlement is right for you, do you use an agency or do it yourself? And using an agency, all their websites will tell you that a good deal is 50% off. So if you are at $50,000, pay $25,000. And then the agency will charge you 25% of your debt on top of that. So if you owe $50,000 and you pay $25,000 and you pay a 20% fee, you're now paying $35,000 on your $50,000 and only saving $15,000, which frankly isn't that big of a savings. If you owe $50,000, you have $35,000. That's a lot. Yeah. If you do it yourself, you can settle for about 35% and not pay fees. So you're going to wind up only spending about 17, which means you're going to spend half. You're going to save twice as much doing it yourself as using an agency. And the second benefit is you get to empower yourself through the process. You're on the phone calls. All the things I hear from people so often of, I called my agency over, I couldn't get them to return a phone call. I never knew what was going on. Years went by. You're just giving away all of that power and control. When you do it yourself and you make the phone calls yourself and you negotiate yourself, you are processing through the emotions so that when the process is done, not only have you saved twice as much money and you're out of debt in a year instead of 20 years and saved all that interest, but you feel empowered and in control around your finances, which you never get using an agency or filing bankruptcy. Filing bankruptcy is the same. You may get out of debt, but you're turning everything over to the court to run your life for you. I'm all about telling people how to let go of the negative emotion, take control of their own finances, and empower themselves to go create their own solution. And that strength continues with you through your financial life forever afterward.
Oh, I love it. I think you're just right on the money. Boom. Right on the finance money there. That's such great words of wisdom. What if someone says, well, hey, Kenny, I don't have time. I just don't have time to make all these calls. I think, to me, getting a hold of my finance health is important to me. I would make the time, but I'm sure you've heard that where people are like, I don't have the time to make those calls.
Yeah, there's lots of best practices and tips in the book because I went through it all. I like to look at debt settlement as it's a dark tunnel. Like if you don't know it's like going into a dark haunted house. Every little sound is scary. And then you turn the lights on and you see it for what it is and it's not scary anymore. So what I do, my books, my videos, my courses, they're all about turning the lights on that dark tunnel so that you recognize everything that's coming. And then as it comes, you go, oh, I expected that. So on the time management thing, somebody who's behind in payments on several credit cards might be getting many phone calls a day from collection agents. And their gut level reaction is, I can't handle this, just ignore it. And you ignore it. This just happened to a client of mine. They ignored it for a year, and then boom, they were in a lawsuit they didn't even know was coming. Like, if you talk to the agents, if you make the time to talk to them, they want to work with you. They want to settle this. They want to reach an arrangement. They don't want to go to court. They will when they have no other option. But one thing people can do is program the number into their phone of the collection agents. And then when it comes up in the middle of a Sunday and you're out with your kids, or the middle of a Tuesday and you're at work, you go, oh, that's a collection agent. Send it to voicemail, but then on your drive home, call them back. Now you're controlling the time the same way you're controlling your emotions and you're controlling the process, instead of feeling like the victim where the debt collectors and the banks and what you owe is controlling all of those things on you.
Right. Yeah, no, that's key right there. Let's talk about your courses really quick. So what kind of courses do you have, and where can people find them, and what will they get from taking a course?
Yeah. So my website's Debt Reduction Made Easy, which is really easy. And when you go there, you'll see my 2 books, the Do-It-Yourself Bailout and the new book, Debt Reduction Made Easy. There's also a video course that I offer where if people want to do home study, they can just purchase. It's like a 25 module, 12 hour. It's me on camera, just like I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
It's me on camera talking them through the entire book, and all the coaching and all the emotions and all that is in the video course, which I've been, providing for a few years now, but I'm just starting something brand new. This is the first time I've ever done this. I've had some old clients call me up, they ask questions and this and that, and I've done hourly consulting here and there, but I've noticed such a consistency of questions along the way that for the first time ever, I'm going to be offering a course where you sign up for the Debt Reduction Made Easy course, you get the books, you get the videos, you get all of that, and once a week for 6 months, you get to join a coaching call with me and the other people going through it, so that as people say, hey, I just had this phone call with this collection agent that made me feel like this, what do I do? Other people are there to hear the answer. And when somebody says, hey, I just settled this card for this amount, it gives you the encouragement. So for the first time ever, I'm allowing people to take my material, but also join a course with me once a week to guide them and lead them and hold their hand really through the whole process. So that's at Debt Reduction Made Easy /course-info.com. So if you go to www.debtreductionmadeeasy altogether /course-info, that button is also on the Debt Reduction Made Easy site. So if they don't know all that, they can just go to Debt Reduction Made Easy, click the button for the course info. When you sign up for the course info, it's not signing you up for the course. You get a free PDF that I made on the top 10 mistakes people make when they're in debt. So that's yours to read and learn from. And then it puts you on my mailing list. So when the course gets started, you're already there. You said, hey, my hand's in, you'll get contact. And it's not expensive. It's going to be a few $100s, the course. It's not going to be like thousands. My goal is to reach everybody, 40 million people who spent 2 years out of work during COVID, and they were living on credit cards. And then they went back to work, and maybe they got a 3% raise or a 5% raise, but inflation went up 10% and their utility bills went up 25% and food went 100%. And there's no way, even at your new salary, paying interest in, not to mention the interest, your credit card that used to be 6% is now 20% because the interest rate hikes. There's no way to ever pay off the debt you got into during COVID the way the finances came out of COVID. I want to reach all those people at a really, really you don't have to think about it. Don't go pay a debt settlement agency $20,000 to get you out of debt and still feel stress and anxiety and shame and guilt the whole way. Come to me, get a couple of books, get a video course, talk to me once a week for 6 months, get out of debt in a year instead of 20, save tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let me help you do that. That's what I'm doing for the first time ever.
Beautiful. I love it. You did say those links, so you guys have put those links in the show notes. So if you connected and need some help with your debt, do not hesitate to reach out to Kenny and click the link and go sign up for his courses and purchase his books. Kenny, this is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
Oh, the words of wisdom I really want to leave is you're not alone. If you're struggling from debt, we're all taught to believe we're alone, hold it in. People keep it secret from their spouses. It leads to divorce. Kids in college keep it secret from their parents. It leads to stress and breakdown in relationships. People literally, I'm not kidding. People kill themselves because they can't manage credit card debt. Like, of all the things in the world, to have your family fall apart and your life end because you owe money to a bank whose job it is to have you get in debt.
Yeah.
The statistics show most people struggling with credit card debt don't get there out of poor spending and savings habits. They get there out of market crashes and COVID, and the business they work for goes out of business, or the job they work for ends, or interest rates go up, and the model you were living that did work suddenly doesn't work anymore, and then they're taught to think it's their fault. It's not your fault. You're not alone. 70 million people missed credit card payments in 2022.
Wow.
Just tell yourself, this is a thing. It is what it is. And I can empower myself to go do that. And there is help out there, whether it's me or something else. Go find the resources to help you succeed in your life. Don't think that because the world changes, you have to suffer. You're not alone. You have the power to take control of your finances, and come let me show you how to do it.
Oh, yes, Kenny, that was awesome. I feel the passion in your voice that you want to help people get out of these like situations and not feel ashamed. Because like what I think that is a common denominator is that shame that people feel like, oh my God, how am I in this situation? How do I get myself out? Well, you guys, Kenny can help you get out of that situation. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your gifts, and what you offer people to help get out of debt, bad debt circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcasts. Live your best life. You must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.